Hi there. Let's talk about profiling. Criminal profiling has been cultivated over decades of research of talking to people who perpetrate crimes about their past, their present, what triggered them into committing those crimes, their victim type, their family life, all sorts of other things. It's based on stats. So there is an exact science to it in terms of those stats. Unfortunately, humans are all different. So it isn't entirely based on the science of the thing. There is always an outlier. There's always someone who isn't within the averages. So the average serial killer had a bump to their head. That doesn't mean all serial killers did as a child. So there are outliers. The problem with profiling is it depends on multiple victims. The more information you have about the victim type, the more information you have about the killer, which means that a profile can't always be helpful to the police in their investigation when there's one victim or one known victim or two. And we've all seen this on programs like Criminal Minds Get It Right in terms of, you know, sometimes you do need another victim, and it is an awful position for police and profilers to be in because they want to solve this crime and they don't want anyone else to be in harm's way, but they need more information. So when it comes to profiling serial killers, there are some really useful stats. There are killers who love to talk and love to be helpful. You look at Ed Kemper. When he was finally imprisoned, he was one of the first serial killers to talk to the FBI behavioral unit when they were first being formed. He loved to talk and he loved to be helpful. He wanted to be helpful. Now, Ed Kemper is kind of an outlier in himself because he was very tall. He was very large, which made him stand out in a crowd. But it also made him look like a bumbly, helpful person. He even admitted to the crimes. He used to go drinking with the cops working his case. And one evening, surrounded by these cops in a cop bar, he said he was the serial killer that they were after, and they all laughed. Now, not all serial killers come across that way. Every serial killer gives them more information to work on. The problem is there are certain assumptions about these people that are embedded in an older system. The information that they got in the 70s and 80s from these people. Technology has changed the way serial killers work. It's also given investigators far better tools to be able to trace people once they have a suspect. But also being able to research serial killers that have come before them and how they got caught, how to avoid leaving DNA and other evidence. So it's a double-edged sword. There are misconceptions like serial killers don't cross racial lines. That is based on many decades ago, neighborhoods being predominantly one color or another. You had very insular living setups because of systemic racism. So it wasn't a case of killers not crossing racial lines. It was a case of availability of victim. So all of these things need to be rethought over and over again. It's a constantly shifting way of doing things. So profiling doesn't always work. It isn't always as accurate as it's portrayed in the media. It needs to be in conjunction with good investigative work, and the ability to adapt the profile depending on evidence available. It needs the profiler and the police to be open to other ideas. Profiling in the past has led investigators down one path, and actually they've been looking for the wrong person. So, for instance, with the Gilgo Beach murders, these women were said to be wrapped in burlap sacks, and actually they were wrapped in personal duck hunter covers. That information would have been far more useful if it had been out and used. There were a lot of failings in that case, a lot of failings, and a lot of corruption that got in the way. And again, profilers can only work with what the police are giving them. And the remit that they're working under. If you've got a corrupt police chief that is, or sheriff, who is deliberately derailing things because of his own criminality and him not wanting to get caught, that's going to slow down the process, and profilers can't do their work. So profiling is a science, but there is also an art to it. You get a feel for people. Now, we profile people all of the time. We make assumptions about people based on our experience with people who have similar personality traits, similar backgrounds. The more we learn about someone, the more we get into their psyche. And it's something we all do to a greater or lesser degree. We also, when we watch TV, we profile the people, the characters that we're watching. We get into their psyche when they are written and played incredibly well. We are doing that subconsciously. We're all capable of doing it to a lesser or greater degree. That is not me saying that we can all be criminal profilers and that profilers are talking bunkum, because they're not. They are using knowledge based in the stats, the killers that have come before them, but the one that they're hunting. But it isn't an exact science. And in this day and age of media and instant technology, instant information, we expect more from investigators and profilers in an age of having watched, a decade of Criminal Minds. We expect profilers to get it right 9 times out of 10 and catch the killer really easily. And it's just not that simple, unfortunately. If you've got value out of what I'm doing, if you're enjoying my content, do hit the subscribe button, hit a like so I know that you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you on the next round.